Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today. Much love going out to all the beautiful, empowered harmonizers. We are zooming in and we are focusing in on a great viewer question, and that is basically how do you do a perspective reset? After you've been in a problematic relationship, you've had a fight, you've had a disagreement, things are getting ugly. Things are getting nitpicky. You're getting on each other's nerves. You're getting too entangled, too ensnared in sort of a tit for tat, and you don't have a good, happy space within, really on an ongoing or consistent basis. You kind of always feel like you're the target of some arrow or some arrows that are coming from one direction or many directions. So you oftentimes are feeling targeted, oftentimes by combativeness or argumentativeness from someone who really might be sort of toxic or sort of dwelling or tipping their toes in the dark area. In other words, getting angry, getting vicious, getting malevolent. We see this in the personality disorders because they're unable to keep this in check. So if you are on the other side and you need to do a reset, you have to realize what a narcissist or a psychopath can and will keep in check for themselves, and what you need and should and want to be excited about keeping in check for yourself. So the big epiphany, the big excitement, the big passion is realizing your liberation, really, and coming to your own senses, coming to your own feel good, what stimulates you from, the just sort of the inside in, if you will, and looking for happiness in different places, especially now with the pandemic. You can't really look for happiness in the same places maybe where you were before. And this all has to be for a better good. If you can embrace that and say, I accept this for the greater good, and it's actually an opportunity. Opportunity and crisis oftentimes go very closely hand in hand. So if you're interpreting a relationship issue as a crisis, it's actually an opportunity. If you're coming to some raw emotions or big decisions that could radically change the how your life moves forward, the trajectory, where you end up, the big picture, where you end up, uh, putting down more roots. This becomes a real existential situation when you need to really do a reset, and what that is about. It's really about feeling good again. I would say prior to a narcissist relationship, there were feel good times for you. And a narcissist, usually they have this sort of glib or charm, very much like these psychopaths. So charming meaning they're very provocative. They have a je ne sais quoi. They have a charisma. They have a magnetism. They have an appeal. All those being told, if we circle back to that, keeping that in check, what if those elements are not kept in check, either by the individual or others? So we hear, stories about rock stars and, all this stuff, so debauchery, just things going out of control, overconsumption, substance abuse. This is not really pleasurable, but it might be painted as pleasurable, and they might really be rejecting what is truly pleasurable and important for you. So this is where you become an underling unconsciously. You make an unconscious, which is you're not aware of the decision that you're making, which is very imperative when you're moving through and doing a reset. I think it's really important that you look and understand the degree of the deprivation that you have gone through, of validation. So it's like you haven't been through validation. You haven't gone, someone hasn't said, oh my God, that's amazing. That is incredible. Your dish was like a million stars. They don't have that dopamine, that excitement, that thrill, that natural organic thrill anymore. You're not really permitted to receive that stroke yourself. Oftentimes you're used to being the one who has to give the strokes, and it has to go only that one way. So you really do feel that, part of the healing is resetting that bad habit, resetting that bad perspective where you're automatically throwing yourself under the bus. It becomes almost like a muscle memory or a automatic process. You throw yourself under the bus. I'm no good at this. I can't meet anybody. I'm undesirable. And you become sort of like an anti-magnet for happiness in your life. You begin resisting the situations that would truly make you happy, and you don't go shooting in that direction. In other words, if you don't have the gust, if you don't have the oomph, if you don't have the momentum or the self-belief and line things up for yourself to fly, then you're not going to feel that you're flying through your days, no matter what. If it's gloomy, raining, hailing, sun shining, you've got pine trees outside your windows, or you've got palm trees. It does not matter. A reset really is imperative after you've been through a relationship that has been toxic, namely in that if you're with a lack of empathy, or you're not getting the validation, the you are amazing, the you are, and that you can own that. In other words, it's a true connection, it's a true oxytocin, and it's not threatening to one party or the other. This is very imperative because usually in a narcissist relationship, your happiness is a threat to them. Your growth, your true smile, your authenticity is taken, like an egg, and they're just going to crack it over God knows what ledge, and then spill your heart, your brains, your body, your nausea all over the place, causing you to, cry, slobber, make a mistake, wherever, and you're looking like a fool, looking dumb, you're feeling like a dunce. I mean, that's usually the negative painting, the sort of negative filter that is cast on you. And because you're so used to sort of seeing things through the narcissist or the psychopath's eyes, being codependent usually means you just sublimate yourself, and it's just you're happy to be sort of altruistic. Here's your people who are real magnets for those people who are narcissistic is, big empathy, big care, has compassion for people who have struggles in their life. Maybe you identify with a struggle, and you've seen where they've overcome, but you didn't realize that they did not overcome, and then you get mixed up with some other very unhealthy relationship dynamics that involve criticism, that involve lying, that involve cheating, that involve stealing, or just a lot of absence. And this, and if you're trying to come to terms or be equivalents here, the narcissist will scoff you off, minimize, and dismiss you as if you're just flaky, as if you don't know what you're talking about. I am the ruler of the roost. And, it's, and that could very well be so, but it doesn't give you the place to minimize or dismiss what others are contributing, because often their contributions and their importance is just as vast. And if you are threatened by that, or are unwilling to see that either in the past, the present, or the future, especially in all those people who you encounter, you have to look at and understand what implications that can have for your relationships with others. In other words, namely, they're going to get hurt by the open blade that you just sort of cast and hurt others with. So you have to be able to acknowledge and validate. But the narcissist, that's the problem with being in a relationship, is that people get hurt for so long that they don't even know what feeling good feels like anymore. They're numbed out to it, or they're petrified of their happiness. They're petrified of being stable. They are unsure of themselves, and yet they are already these things, and yet they will interpret it as if, well, I could be boring, or this person could be right. So stop with the gaminess, this sort of game mentality of your reset. Realize how important it is for you to stop putting everybody else on a pedestal, and you're just sort of always the one looking up. It is oftentimes admirable to be looking up to others in that humility. So you should be able to be looking up to yourself is part of the healing and the reset. And then coming back to really what stimulates you from your senses in. So you give yourself a chance. We were talking about yesterday about what that means. And it's sort of coming back to yourself and not feeling ordinary, normal, boring, plain, undramatic, unchaotic. I mean, that's usually what this is code for. If you have felt unworthy, in a relationship, it's really because you didn't put up with the chaos. You tried to stop the drama, and and those are worthy pursuits. But to someone who is narcissistic, they like to be combative. They like to be argumentative. They are unhappy really all the time. There's a deep-seated insecurity. And so usually people then want to pacify that because, well, who wants to have, someone crying wolf all the time? I mean, you want to feed and pacify that beast within these people and make sure that they are happy. There's nothing wrong with that. But when you end up having to negate yourself, or not being able to be treated with respect and have that mirroring back, which is like igniting your fire of happiness again. When they go, oh my God, your soup is amazing. I love your da da da. And getting that positive feedback, but not from someone who's manipulating, or, someone who just doesn't have an agenda, or just doesn't even need to be overly complimentary, but can at least be on the positive and not have to always be on the defensive, is really important to your reset. So we talk about either, what other people are bringing, but it's really important what you're bringing to yourself. And here we go. So what you're bringing to yourself is the feel good that you have been deprived of. Usually, oftentimes, in a relationship with a toxic other, you are always giving and you're not always receiving, and you take pleasure in the giving. But you don't realize that pretty soon you become depleted really from, the bottom up, until you're really running on vapors. And that's usually when people find out that they've got a negative pattern, and a negative pattern of feeling in their life. That's because of either having too much empathy or being made vulnerable and an easy target by people who see these people with empathy because they're an easy target. They're quote unquote weak. They have emotions and they have caring and feelings that are oftentimes very legitimate and are very moral, and existentially based, or there is something to be acknowledged or respected. Even if it's different, it doesn't mean it has to be a threat. But the narcissist and the psychopath will interpret that as a threat because it just, any sort of glimmer or flash of light that takes away from them is less for them. So it's kind of like they have that need for attention and admiration, and they need that asymmetry. They need that to be off balance. They need the chaos. They need the drama. And that's all well and good, but it doesn't mean that they have to rake you over the coals and misinterpret and mistreat you, your healthy and normal, natural, healthy intentions, and pervert them as such. So that's part of the problem, is that a lot of people in the hurt, they have an existential or a very deep hurt. You can't get very deep with a narcissist. You can't talk it out. They won't go deep. A psychopath might just sort of sit there, and they might just be taking notes because they're like, wow, well, this is how this person ticks. Man, if I want to better secure my bait, this is what I need to do. So it's really important. I mean, we could talk a lot about that, but in terms of the reset, I want you to understand where a lot of you did get calibrated for your worst. Calibrated meaning your senses were not in alignment, baby. Your focus, your breathing, your heartbeat, your health and habits that were built upon such really get discombobulated, otherwise known as chaos. Otherwise, which means you felt played, you felt seduced, you felt misled, you weren't given an opportunity for connection. there is an attachment disorder. There is a lack of trust. And all these have really their accompanying physiological states, particularly that of oxytocin and being able to feel good. I mean, since when is feeling good illegal? I mean, you have to be on a Starbucks, a Dunkin' Donuts, a 0 calorie, a handful of this, just to feel something other than what you are. So so look at what has oftentimes been overdone or overplayed in society, and look at sort of reclaiming and becoming a pioneer and having a frontier of your own for yourself, namely that of feeling good and allowing your body to work for you rather than you fighting against it. I would say there's so much resistance to your own happiness in a relationship with a narcissist or a psychopath. You end up sacrificing. Who was taught that it's noble and admirable to sacrifice, for a greater good, or you had to forego something, delay gratification? How good are you at starving yourself for this, that, and the other thing? How long can you go? How low can you go? Especially if it's for another and you have based your worth or your survival on feeling that you need to take care of others or be there for others, especially in a way that others are not there for you. So it becomes a real double whammy. People begin investing, and they don't really realize that they're not being validated for the worth of who they are. So they can't own any sort of feeling of worth or credit or credibility. And this becomes then manifest in their life. Underemployed, under obligated, not working up to their potential, feeling apathetic, worried about people all the time, worried about someone throwing a rage fit, worried that someone's going to come home drunk, worried that someone's going to wake up drunk, worried that someone's going to be fighting, worried that there's going to be yelling, worrying that there's going to be punches flown, either physical or emotional. I mean, these are all this is not part of a healthy family system. This should not be tolerated, but oftentimes it is because the doors are closed, the garage is sealed up, you've got the curtains drawn, and it's just not funny. It can catch wildfire very quickly. So that is the energetic vibration that you need to reset against. Realize where the heat temperature is and where, warm and comfortable is for you. What is your opportune temperature and your internal climate? And so resensitizing your inner climate so your body is working for you is so important. We were talking about dry brushing, and we're talking about that. So it's so important that you look at your senses and allow your body to work for you. Everything from your breathing. So, whether it's using a breathing app that helps you to deep breathe and you're breathing from your diaphragm again, but allowing senses, your sense of scent to work well. I've talked about the Palo Alto wood. I've talked about the Palo Alto wood and the sage, where you can have these natural textural, either to not only to decorate in your home, which is good but this is a natural air cleanser, and sort of cleansing your air, in your environment is good. Not only keeping it clean, but having things that really sort of clarify and wake up and arouse the senses towards a peaceful vibration that ascends, rather than getting stuck in the more mundane, the instrumental, the having to take care of others, or always being looking outside of ourselves for something, rather than just an inner energized state of being, which is where we want to ascend to. So transcending all those judgment, stabs at your gut, all the negative things that were sort of slapped up against you, that creates an inner critic. If you are around a lot of toxic people who elevate themselves by criticizing others, and you found yourself in one of those, in the company of this, then you have to realize that that was imprinted, and then you become conditioned and programmed to feel this way based on these what become commands. And so if you're then programmed like a computer, or programmed within your senses, you hear it, you see it, you smell it. It's in your senses, and this is really in your autonomic nervous system, which is then becomes your sympathetic nervous system and becomes your fight or flight. And you're always not in control of this. So it's having a jet engine that you could harness the energy from, but instead you are burning a lot of emotional fuel, sort of trying to shore up yourself from the negative images, the negative uh, statements, the negative sounds, the negative feelings that hit your skin, that hit your emotional and energetic body. You have to reclaim this and sort of reclaim the fullness and wholeness of what you are, and become and stop resisting this. So oftentimes you're taught and programmed to resist your identity of I am, and I am strong, and I am self-sustaining. There is a dependency and a real negative trauma bond that is created. So you have to detach and be willing and open to detaching from the negativity and not being defined by this person anymore. So to what degree is that a feeling of threat to you? That you can identify yourself with your positives, even though they weren't mirrored back to you, this can feel very threatening. So you must understand the cause that creates the effect. Really, there's so much in depth here. So we're going to go deep, but I think we want to take this in a couple of steps. But realize that oftentimes part of the problem with the reset is that you have been programmed to resist it. You've been programmed to you've been programmed to resist owning your truth. You've been programmed to resist closeness. You might have been programmed to resist closeness and intimacy and emotional connection. And this is a big no-no. This is a big owie. This is a big lifelong trouble if you've been programmed to deny your a sort of intimacy or closeness or connection. If this is a threat, if this is not in the language, if this is not in the repertoire of a narcissist or a psychopath, they're just not they don't have this going on in the same way that a healthy person is. So you have to embrace that there's a degree of health trying to speak up to you, and so and to stop resisting that your own is enough, your sense of self is enough, because that is what is threatened in the course of a relationship. That is what is eroded. That is what is shredded up. That is what is set over the razor and spliced and diced, so that you become, your own happiness becomes unrecognizable. Only other people's happiness becomes recognizable to you. Who am I going to make happy? Who am I going to make laugh? Who am I going to make smile? And how can I engage on that level? So there's many different levels and layers of the building of this. It's a very complex property of your emotional body. It's like a big mansion. It's like a big sprawling multifaceted dwelling that has libraries and different verandas that you didn't know even could be built into your being, that is part of you. And so you have to be willing to look within and realize all that magnificence that you were trying, you need to sort of come back and retune and recalibrate to your own feel good, and sort of shake off those heebie-jeebies and the dark toxicity, and stop denying yourself your pleasure. And don't be worried you're going to get undercut under the knees, behind the head, upside the chin, upside the cheek, upside the ear, wherever the ear was going to be dragged, wherever you were going to get paddled with, and what, emotionally or literally. Realizing that the reset means coming back to your own feel good, even if it means not being with this person. How threatening or scary is that? That your independence and that you have sort of navigation over self. and to have that independence should be okay. You should be able to take care of self and not have to be sort of obsessed with only one person, worried about one person. It's okay to branch out for and with oneself intact. So when we talk about the resensitizing, realize that it has to do with your breathing. It has to do with your focus. But namely, feeling good within. We were talking about dry brushing. And if you are to even just get a dry brush, I mean, this can't even be more than $10. Wherever you find it, Etsy, wherever you find it, eBay, Amazon, and there's people, men included, oh, I don't know how to use this. Where's the manual? There is no right or wrong way. I mean, just don't injure yourself. You're not hurting yourself and doing something nonsensical. You can read all sorts of ways to do it online, but realize that it stimulates yourself from the skin in, which is oftentimes why people seek massage, because the touch therapy wakes up the feel good neurochemicals, and you get that feeling of oxytocin, that feeling of bonding and connection, particularly that of trust, which you need within. It's okay to feel good. And oxytocin is really that sort of bonding chemical when you are becoming close and you can like laugh and trust with somebody, and you don't feel that you're going to be threatened or backstabbed in any way, or there's no alternate agenda that you have to get a manuscript to figure out how to interact with this person. So if you do this, and if you do a test like I did yesterday from just like one arm and one arm that wasn't, it sends like really positive and feel good impulses under the skin. So you need to feel good under your own skin again. You need to really admit that. And there's no, you might need to break a couple bad habits if you're always trying to pacify yourself sort of from the outside in. Look at what your senses are trying to tell you. And if you do this, and my whole arm just felt energized. It felt almost like it's pulsating with good feelings, because this one is really coarse. So this one definitely, I mean, you can almost see it. It'll put a dust in the air of the skin that is exfoliating. I mean, you can do this on your knees, your calves, and you can do it in circles, or down, up, depending on what is energizing for you. But like this, it gives your body a chance to feel good for you. So things in like Epsom salt baths, Himalayan salt baths that are very healing, male and female. Getting into those healing and putting things in a bath so that you can soak it up, and after a dry brushing. You might do an Epsom salt and essential oil bath. Get some herbal teas that can go in there. I mean, and we're going to save some of these for more on the next video, because there's a lot of different things that I've been curating and experimenting with that I'm excited to share with you as part of your healing journey. It's your buddy, Peace and Harmony, with you here today, and I hope that these videos do help. Please share, please subscribe, and for goodness sake, please donate for more great tools, videos, discussion, and support. Peace in, peace out, peace be with you, and peace in your environment. Once you have peace within, the environment will reflect. Have a beautiful day.